Alright, I'll level with you guys. Greek mythology is honestly a bit stale for me. Mostly due to just how well known it is already in the public eye due to the many famous properties going out to promote them. Those including the God of War games, well, the first 6 of them at least, the Percy Jackson books and discontinued movies, as well as the hilariously inaccurate yet still musically endearing Disney movie Hercules.
Honey, you mean Hercules!
Basically what you need to know is that I don't care too much to talk about Greek mythology because literally any hack on the internet can already talk about it. And seeing as I'm a bit of a narcissist, it doesn't stroke my ego enough. But I'm willing to make an exception for Typhon, who is pretty much my personal favorite Greek figure. Now to preface Typhon is to basically rattle off a very condensed list of his many children who survived past him in various mythological tales. These include, but are not limited to, Cerberus, the 3-headed guard dog of the underworld, the Chimera, a lion, goat, snake thing, the Hydra, which if you've seen Captain America, you get the premise of, the Nemean lion, which is essentially just a really big lion, Scylla, half of the duo of Scylla and Charybdis, the Colchian dragon, guardian of the Golden Fleece, the Harpies, according to some sources, which are essentially bird women things, and many of the Gorgons, but not Medusa though, don't get that twisted. And of course the Caucasian eagle, which doesn't sound so bad until you realize its sole purpose in life is to eat a man's liver straight out of his stomach every day as a sick form of torture. So yeah, this guy's children have quite the legacy about them, but what about their father? Well, to understand that, we're going to have to go back towards the beginning of Greek mythology. Back to the time of the Titans. Right about this time, the world was said to be in the grip of powerful entities superseding the gods, known as the Titans, the proud lineage of the 2 initial creator gods, Gaia and Uranus, and how they rose to power is quite interesting unto itself. You see, Uranus and Gaia are similar to Dan and Danu from our previous video, in that since Uranus was the sky and Gaia was the earth, he was pretty much topping that all the time, and so understandably, quite a few unattended babies came from that union, including the Cyclops, giants, and the Hecatoncharies, who basically put Shiva to shame with the amount of arms they possessed. So Uranus, not wanting to pay all that child support, banished all of these children to Tartarus, which is basically Greek hell. Except for a few children that he liked, who were, unsurprisingly, the 12 original Titans. Oceanus, Coeus, Crius, Hyperion, Iapetus, Cronus, Thea, Rhea, Themis, Mnemosyne, Phoebe, and Tethys. Eventually, Cronus decided that he didn't much care for the way that Daddy was running things, and he wanted to take control over the entire Earth. So like any civil discussion between a father and son, he castrated his father with a scythe. With his reign now secured, Cronus decided that of the 6 women on the planet, he found his sister Rhea to be the most attractive, and started making sweet, sweet incest love to her. And they too had many children, whom Cronus decided to eat rather than see any of them grow up to dethrone him like he did to his father. Rhea, obviously traumatized by the past 11 times that she let this happen, decided enough was enough at the 12th kid, and disguised a rock as the baby, which Cronus swallowed. That baby was Zeus, and would eventually grow up to rescue his devoured siblings, dethrone his father, and kick all the Titans out back into Tartarus. But Messiah, I hear none of you asking, who raised Zeus if Rhea had to keep him a secret? That's a very good question. I'm glad plenty of you were smart enough to ask it. Plot twist, it was Gaia, who was frickin' pissed at Cronus by this point, because the entire reason that she allowed for him to take power in the first place was that so he would free his bastard non-Titan brothers from the bowels of Tartarus. Something that he obviously did not do. But Zeus eventually did. Only to throw the Titans in there later, which only served to piss off his grandma even more, because she wants everyone to not rot in hell and sing Kumbaya together on Earth. Or, her. And it is this set of circumstances which finally leads us to Typhon. Despite the multiple accounts we have of Typhon, it's pretty much universally agreed that he is the offspring of Gaia, with some sources claiming that his father was Tartarus. Yes, it's a place and a person, Greek mythology gets confusing sometimes, but most sources just claim that he was Earthborn. With the exception to that one story about Hera actually being the sole parent of Typhon, who was mad at Zeus for creating Athena out of nothing, so she prayed to Gaia and the Titans to give her a son to rival Athena. But that's a later account and really messes with the time frame of when this thing was actually supposed to exist. Some accounts say that Typhon was born from Gaia to combat Zeus and the other Olympians for imprisoning the Titans in Tartarus, while some others say that Typhon was the last line of defense for the Titans in the war against the Olympians for control over the Earth. Basically, what you need to know is that Typhon was born of spite for the gods and was used as a force to combat them and possibly dethrone Zeus. But we'll get into that discussion later because we're about to dive into something even more perplexing than that: Typhon's appearance. Now, because old Greek mythological texts survived with little to no Christian influences or book burnings throughout the centuries, we have a plethora of confusing and contradicting accounts for what this monstrosity looked like. Some say that he had a humanoid form from the waist up with 2 snakes for tails, while others go on to say that he has anywhere from 50 to 100 additional snake heads protruding from his shoulders and even describe him as having wings. And in some accounts, yes, Typhon has the head of an ass. No, I don't mean that he literally has an ass for a face, I mean he has the ass for a face. Shut up. In addition to the 100 snake heads and the main head of a donkey, Typhon was also said to have the head of a lion, bull, wolf, bear, dog, whatever other animal you wanted to add on there. I guess you can just stick it onto his torso. But wait, there's more! Call now and Typhon will also be depicting as having 200 hands! I realized that the Greeks wanted to make this guy out to be the scariest thing to ever walk, or I guess slither the earth, but it really comes across as an overly complicated monster of massive proportion. Oh, and that was another thing. He was massive. It was said that when Typhon would walk upright, his head would brush against the stars. Everything and everyone feared this thing, even the gods, who all transformed themselves into animals to flee into Egypt. Except for good old Zeus, who decided that he wasn't about to have his grandma kick his ass and do epic battle with Typhon. And while it may or may not be as epic as the priest fighting a giant animated tree as we discussed in the Celtic creation story, it was still brutal and was said to lay waste to the land. Some mythological stories claim that Zeus and Typhon's battles cut out the way for a multitude of different rivers in the Greek countryside, and in Conus's Dionsyca, it is said that Typhon stole Zeus's thunderbolts to try and combat him. However, and I'm not making this up, quote, "The thunderbolts felt the hands of a novice, and all their manly blaze was unmanned." So essentially, if Typhon were more manly than he was, I guess monsterly, the Greek pantheon would look quite different. Eventually, Zeus finished off the monster by either banishing it to Tartarus or throwing a literal mountain on top of him, depending on which account you read on it. Regardless, Typhon lived on with a legacy of fathering only the most ferocious and captivating monsters the Greeks had to offer, and occasionally being the cause of Mount Etna's eruptions. Oh, and typhoons are named after him, if you didn't already catch that. Typhon is a pretty cool character to look into, and while his children are definitely more well-known than he is, none of them can say that they stood up to Zeus and caused the whole rest of the pantheon to flee with their anthropomorphic tails between their legs. Typhon is, plain and simple, the amalgamation of every horrific nightmare you could possibly drum up in your mind, and quite possibly the most definite form of a monster. In fact, he seems to parallel Zeus as a sort of anti-god, fathering a multitude of antagonistic forces within Greek mythology, with Zeus fathering an equal number of demigods to slay them. So in conclusion, Typhon is like a cooler, more ancient form of Satan. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Sorry I wasn't able to get this content out a bit more recently, but if you did enjoy, be sure to subscribe so that you can stay up to date with all of my future videos. Next time we'll be covering the Japanese creation myth and how one of their goddesses became a stripper. And until next time, I'm Messiahs and Mythologies. and I'll be seeing you later. In fact, he seems to parallel Zeus as a sort of anti-god, fathering multiple agnostic